I want it now. Is that your mantra? Do you hate to wait for something? Let's look at delayed gratification today on Lightly Salted.
Welcome to Lightly Salted. Now let's join your host, Debbie Harmon, for today's podcast.
I hate to wait. I want it now. I want instant gratification, kind of like microwave satisfaction. I place a cup of water in the microwave and voila, in less than a minute, I have hot water. I don't want to fool with the old tea kettle thing on the stove top waiting for it to whistle. When I want a cup of tea, I want it now. However, to get a proper cup of tea, you have to let the tea bag steep in the water for several minutes. This way, all the rich flavors of the tea will seep from the bag and you'll get the best tasting tea. I regularly cook a lot of meals at one time. I don't like to stop what I'm doing to make dinner for my husband every night. I also don't want him to not have dinner to eat. So to compensate for that, I'll take a weekend every few months and make about 5 different types of meals. Each of these usually produce anywhere from 5 to 10 servings for him. Then I'll put them in freezer containers, label them, and place them in the freezer. He knows all he has to do is take one out in the morning and thaw it out, and then that evening he will have a fresh homemade meal. I don't like most of the things I make for him, so these meals are just his. We have several freezers stocked with dinners that he can choose from. I make things like Brunswick stew, vegetable beef soup, various pasta dinners, chicken pot pie, cowboy casserole, and shepherd's pie, just to name a few of the dishes. Sometimes I'll even make him little pies like key lime, pecan, peanut butter, and chocolate mousse. These also get frozen. Occasionally, I might make loaves of homemade bread and bagels. Most of my cooking is done during the colder months. I spend all weekend preparing these meals. My kitchen's a mess during this process. The downside is sometimes we'll find a very expired frozen meal in the back of the freezer. Sadly, these things get thrown away. It's very easy to forget all of the dishes that I have in there. I label, date, and give cooking instructions on everything I make and freeze. This way my husband doesn't have to interrupt me if I'm in the studio recording, filming, or writing something. He knows I do not like to be interrupted if I'm in the midst of creating material. It breaks my concentration, and it's difficult to pick up where I left off. So to make my life easier and alleviate my wife guilt of feeding my man, I have practiced this meal prep routine. Honestly, I have to be in the mood to do the cooking. It is not my passion, and I wait till he has just about ran out of food options to start the meal prep marathon weekend. My husband loves it when I cook. He is like a little kid at Christmas waiting to open his presents. I literally have to run him out of the kitchen. He wants to sample everything I'm making. Sometimes I'll give him a little taste, which he whines for more. But I must remind him that the meal is not ready yet. The flavors have to hang out together. That's what I tell him. All the seasonings haven't melded together yet. The dish isn't up to its full potential. He doesn't care. He hates to wait for that to happen. However, he misses the true flavor of the dish when he tastes it too soon. 8 years ago, I got this wild idea to make slipcovers for some furniture that I inherited when my dad passed away. The chairs and sofa were in excellent condition. They just needed some sprucing up. I wanted to bring them into the current era and make them match my decor. This gave me 2 options: recover them or slipcover them. I diligently tried to find slipcovers that would fit these pieces, but to no avail. I exhausted every possibility. Now I had to either pay for someone to make slipcovers or upholster them. My third option was for me to learn how to make slipcovers myself. I've spent most of my life sewing. When I was in high school, I was required to take home ec, and one year it was a sewing class. I selected a super cute pattern and material. It was a pair of pants and a little jacket. It was pretty simple sewing. All was good until the teacher required us to wear our outfits to school once we completed them. I was not confident in my sewing skills. The whole day I was afraid my outfit would fall apart. I even took a backup outfit to school that day, just in case. When I was a senior in high school, I made my pleated cheerleading skirt. This was a challenging project, but I did pull it off. My mother made almost all of my clothes when I was growing up. I also watched her make dolls and quilts and even my wedding dress without a pattern. When I was planning my wedding, Mom and I went shopping for a dress, and the one I wanted was very expensive. However, she examined the dress and said, "I can make that." Well, she certainly did. She took some old drapes and created her own pattern. It was almost like a Gone with the Wind moment when Scarlett O'Hara had a dress made from the green velvet draperies. My mom had a knack for making something without a pattern. And my wedding dress? It was gorgeous. I really didn't get into sewing until a few years after I was married. Being a broke newlywed made me quickly realize that I could make an outfit much cheaper than I could buy one. I also made my daughter's dresses when she was little. I took up smocking when she was born, and she had lots of French hand-sewn and smock dresses. When my son was born, he also wore smocked clothes. Of course, they were for boys. Well, at least he did till he was 3. As my kids grew, I'd make them costumes to play in. I made my son a soldier's outfit, a Robin Hood outfit, and several other things. All the drapes in my house have been made by me. Sewing has always been part of my life. I have a love-hate relationship with it. Just like cooking, I must be in the mood to sew, as my mother called it. I go through phases of having sew-a-thons, and then I don't sew anything at all for years. However, given all my sewing experience, I was not versed in slipcover making. It's a difficult process. First, you have to cut your own pattern. This is very time-consuming and tedious. There's not an exact science to it. It's trial and error, with lots of both. I worked on one chair for over a week. I would trace onto paper a portion of the chair, make a pattern, cut out the material, stitch it together, and then try it on the chair. Sometimes it fits, but most of the time it doesn't. This means I have to recut the pattern and recut the material. It's an ongoing learning curve. I hate the whole process and wondered why I even had this bright idea. I want to point out that this was not a once and done for just one chair. Oh no, the slipcover making was for 4 winged back rolled arm chairs and 3 camelback rolled arm chairs. You may have no idea what I'm talking about, but these are not your straight across, easy to cover pieces of furniture. You had to get the curves exactly right, or the slipcovers would not fit. It was a tedious process. However, I saved thousands of dollars in labor cost. The material was only $3 a yard, and I needed bukus of yards of material. I literally could have bought all new chairs and sofas for what I would have paid to have a professional make the slipcovers, especially if I purchased the material from them. Well, I did it. After a long, arduous process, all 5 pieces of furniture look brand new with their slipcovers. Currently, I need to make 2 more slipcovers for winged recliners, but I can't seem to get in the mood to do so. And it's been 8 years since I finished the project. Well, last year, I decided I was tired of the slipcovers on 2 of my sofas. I knew there was no way I was tackling the slipcover process again. I thought, upholstering has to be easier than making a slipcover. Again, I'm too cheap to pay someone to do this for me. I think it would have cost me around $1,500 per sofa, and I needed 2 of them covered. These sofas are old. I've had them for over 30 years. There would have been no shame in purchasing new ones. I went furniture shopping. I saw nothing that I liked, and nothing was as comfortable as my current sofas. So I get this wild notion that, hey, I can learn to upholster. I watched videos, and then one day I took the plunge and started ripping the fabric off the sofa. Now, you gotta remove the fabric in a very specific manner. It was an arduous process. In fact, I got very ill with a respiratory infection that derailed me for a couple of weeks. I wasn't wearing a mask when taking off the old dusty fabric, and I'm highly allergic to dust. Honestly, removing the fabric was the hardest part of the upholstery process. After a couple of months and quite a bit of mess, my sofas were recovered and looked brand new. These old gals still have some life left in them. I will not upholster these 2 again. There will definitely be newly purchased sofas when I tire of this new fabric. However, I am going to reupholster the other sofa and 2 chairs that I previously made slipcovers for. They've reached the ugly stage. By the way, I saved thousands of dollars doing the job myself. Again, I only paid $3 for the fabric that I used on my sofas. Oh, sewing projects aren't my only creative outlet. A few years ago, I wanted to add some cabinets to my kitchen. I looked all over the place, even second-hand shops, to find something that I liked or that I could make work. I came up with zilch. So I decided I needed to build my own. My husband's not a craftsman. He will use power tools, but I'm the designer. I tell him, cut this board to this length. He's good at that. So I found these plain box cabinets at a retail store. I was trying to not have to build the cabinets completely from scratch. However, the cabinets were not tall enough for what I wanted. I came up with a solution. If I built a platform for them to sit on, I could raise them up to the height I wanted. But the cabinets were just too plain and boring for my taste. Then I found some wood cutouts that were wall decor, and I added them to the door to whoop-de-doo them up. I also bought lots of trim to put on the platform we were building and on the cabinets to make them look like they were one solid piece of furniture. After much struggle, painting, gluing, and nailing, the project was complete. I know my husband was glad when it was finished. However, in order to make sure that I had 3 good cabinets with no dents, I ordered 5 sets. Now I had 2 sets that I could return to the store or build another bank of cabinets and put them in the dining room. Guess what I did? Yep. Before the saws could be put back in their resting place, I said, hey, let's build some for the dining room. My husband has learned in all these years of marriage to say, yes, dear. Well, mission accomplished. At the beginning of the year, I decided we needed to either get rid of or redo this huge, solid wood, ugly TV cabinet. I pondered what to do with it. Then I got this crazy notion of how to revamp it. Understand, when I start a project, I usually have an idea of how I think it's going to go, but it's a moving target. It kind of evolves during the process. I make tweaks along the way. The first thing we had to do was remove these heavy doors, one of which was glass, and then to remove the top of the cabinet. This cabinet was an odd height. It was from the 1990s, so you can imagine what it looked like. We successfully removed the top and the doors. Even the doors were heavy carrying them downstairs. Now the process began as to how to redo this cabinet. I needed to find new doors for it. I needed 3 doors, 2 with the same width, and 1 was a different width. I looked at all the big box stores and no one had anything that would work. I also wanted to shorten the cabinet by about 12 inches. We couldn't dismantle the whole cabinet to cut it down. It was very well made. So another option had to happen. We would have to use a circular saw to cut it while it was standing in place. This thing is so solid that we couldn't even physically move it away from the wall. We had to put sliding pads underneath it. Plus, I was going to have to paint it, and there was definitely going to be sawdust everywhere when it was cut. This small project turned massive very quickly. After we were able to put a tarp between it and the carpet, my husband taped plastic drop cloths to the ceiling to enclose the workspace. We couldn't cut the cabinet down until after I had found the cabinet doors. The doors would determine the place where the cut would be made. I wasn't able to find anything that would fit the doors, so guess what? I had to make my own. I have no experience in making cabinet doors. I've done some simple doors for a cabinet before, but never anything that looked like it had been cut with a router. I don't even know how to use a router. My goal was to achieve this look without using the router. I actually pulled it off. I made 3 doors, and now I knew where to make the cut. This was the scary part. Since neither of us are proficient with power tools, this was going to be a very dangerous process. We, of course, laid our hands on the cabinet and prayed prior to turning on the saw. Thankfully, we both walked away in one piece with all our fingers still attached. I have to confess that just by recounting these few stories, and I have many more I could share, I'm exhausted. I don't like waiting a long time for anything, especially for something to be finished. I want it done now. Patience is not one of my virtues. It's like exercise. I hate to work out, but I love the results. I'd rather sit on the sofa snacking and watching TV than I had work out, but I know which choice is better. I love being debt-free, but that means I have to save up before I go buy something. If I want to fit in my clothes, I have to push the plate away before I eat too much. Delayed gratification. This is a principle I taught my children. I drilled it in their heads. It blesses my heart when one of them says, I'm practicing delayed gratification. Even this podcast requires delayed gratification. I have to write it, then I have to record it, then I have to edit it, and then finally I get to listen to it, and then I get to post it. That takes delayed gratification. Delayed gratification brings great rewards. It prevents impulsive decisions. It slows you down long enough to evaluate what your long-term goals are and how to achieve them. If your long-term goal is to run a marathon, then you have to deny yourself certain things to train for that goal. You can't only run on the days you feel like it. You can't sleep in when you have to go for a run. You have to watch your diet. There are things that you need to do to train for such a feat. Not everyone can run a marathon, but those who train for it and set their mind to achieve it, usually do. Impossible tasks become possible one step at a time when you're willing to make the necessary sacrifices to achieve your dream. About midway through any of my outlandish projects, I want to throw in the towel and stop. But if I do, I'll never complete it. I have to press on. Paul writes in Philippians 3:13 and 14, "Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. But one thing I do, forgetting what's behind and straining toward what's ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus." In 1 Corinthians 9:24 through 27, Paul talks about having self-discipline and how an athlete trains in a way that requires delayed gratification. He doesn't allow current distractions to interfere with the end goal. One of the fruits of the Spirit that's mentioned in Galatians 5:23 is self-control. Self-control is necessary for delayed gratification. If you don't set your mind on the prize, the goal, or your end game while practicing self-control, you will be unable to endure delayed gratification. When I start a project, whether it's a painting, writing a book, or a movie, redoing a piece of furniture, or whatever crazy idea my mind thinks up, I must persist. Regardless of how much I dislike the process and I want to give up, I must press on towards the goal. I have to endure the tedious process to achieve the end result. This requires delayed gratification. After working on a project for a long time, I'm tired of it by the time it's completed. My husband will inevitably say, "Do you like it?" He knows my answer before he even asks the question. I am known to dislike everything that I make. I see all the imperfections and how I could have done some things better. I can't see the overall beauty of it because I'm only focused on the flaws that no one else will notice. Time and distance makes me forget about those mistakes. I have to walk away from my creative projects to give my mind time to settle down. I have to do this with my movies too. I can't enjoy a movie I produced until years later because I see all the mistakes. I hate being a perfectionist. It makes life difficult sometimes. But I'm getting sidetracked. Another message for another day. God wants us to learn delayed gratification. In Isaiah 40:31 it says, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up on wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." I read that passage from the New King James Version. I love this passage of Scripture, and I quote it to myself when I get anxious because my prayers aren't being answered fast enough. When I'm whining about something that I've been praying for that hasn't been answered, my husband will add the phrase, "yet." He will gently remind me to be patient and wait upon the Lord, whose timing is always perfect. There are several things on my prayer list that have not been answered yet. I don't like delayed gratification. However, what I've discovered is that when I do wait upon the Lord's timing, His blessings are never late, and they're always better than I can hope for or imagine. The waiting period is never fun, but the things I value the most take time, and I have to wait for them. Are you patiently waiting on the Lord, doing your part to achieve your goal, or are you getting sidetracked and even derailed because of instant gratification? Evaluate what you want in life and start enduring delayed gratification. The benefits are huge. Practice self-control to help you put off those things that keep you from your goal. Say no to those immediate temptations. What are you waiting for? And are you practicing delayed gratification to achieve it? Are you making the necessary sacrifice to accomplish it? Many people want those ripped abs, but they don't want to put in the diligent work and sacrifice to achieve it. They just want to take a pill and wake up the next morning with a flat stomach that looks like a bodybuilder. The more you do the right thing to accomplish your dreams, the easier it gets. Delayed gratification brings sweet benefits with it. Try it and see. Happy waiting and practicing delayed gratification. Until next time, stay lightly salted.
This podcast is the opinion of Debbie Harmon and is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing is intended as medical, professional, psychological, theological, or any other professional advice. If you would like to see more of Debbie's products, visit her website at www.entertainmentwithamessage.com or www.ewamtv.com. This podcast is copyright protected and cannot be reused without written permission from its owner, Debbie Harmon. Please invite your friends to listen to this podcast. And don't forget to subscribe and give us a like. Thank you for listening to Lightly Salted.